would like to start with, oh, still people walking in. Would like to start with briefly introducing myself. I have the pleasure and honor to chair this first session of the second day of the summer school. My name is Karen de Borst. I'm working at Shell and I'm leading the technology program on subsurface hydrogen storage, while we investigate at the moment mainly storage in salt caverns and depleted gas fields. Have an interdisciplinary group that is trying to address all the different risks and uncertainties that are associated with the storage technologies. And in fact, we work very closely with academia, with quite a few of you in the room, also some colleagues from other operators. And so it's really a big pleasure for me to be here during these days and also to guide you through the session. And yeah, apologies, Hadi just said on behalf of all the Dutch presidents for the weather. You experience just real Netherlands. Yeah, but I guess with that you're really refreshed. You are, yes. And are really now in the right spirit for the following presentations. This morning we have a series of feasibility studies that will now go a bit more in detail on how to realize hydrogen storage in, I think, most depleted gas fields or salt caverns. It's a bit of a mixture. And the first presentation will actually be given by our Hadi, if I may say. I don't think you need any introduction, but perhaps let me still provide a bit of biological information to really make you aware of what honor it is to have him hosting us here. Hadi is the Energy Simulation Chair in Subsurface Storage and Multiscale Modeling and Associate Professor of Geoengineering, Flow and Mechanics, and Theme Lead of Subsurface Storage, so a lot of roles, in the Department of Geoscience and Engineering of TU Delft. He holds this position since 2013. And has got a PhD with medal from ETH Zurich, the Institute of Fluid Dynamics, before then spending his postdoc time in the Department of Energy Resources Engineering at Stanford University. And he was also appointed as guest professor at Stuttgart University between 2017 and 2020. And is a recipient of the Interpol Award for Porous Media Research, and he is TU Delft's most innovative teaching talents, and also not to forget holder of a Vidi grant from the Dutch National Science Foundation. And I think the presentation that he will give is actually about his Vidi projects at Meyer.
Thanks a lot, Karin.
Good.
That's my pleasure. And thank you all for being here. I mean, the room is getting full and full every day. Thanks very much. We have wind and we have water, so hydrogen is the missing element here. I guess that's also very relevant. It gets a lot better in the afternoon, so that's my good news. And this is how we looked like yesterday. So today we are a little bit wet, but I think it's a wonderful photo. And I was asked if I can post this online. So do I have your permission? Is there anyone who doesn't like his or her photo to be posted? You can put makeup on it, or I see. We will filter it for you. There are some new visual effects we can add to it. So it's a wonderful group, and I'm really honored to be here. Karin presented that. I'm going to give you an overview about the project at Meyer that we have started in 2019. It's a Dutch National Science Foundation project with Shell, Chevron, and SLB. SLB was named Schlumberger at the beginning, and then midway of our project became SLB. So now we have three partners as well in this project. And it's about enabling underground hydrogen storage. And we have already talked a lot in this session already with a lot of my colleagues who know the topic a lot more than I do, is about that we look into underground subsurface storage, but that's not the only element of a storage. We store hydrogen in many other ways. One of them is in larger scale is surface tanks, and we know that we have been using it in a space agency since 80s. Kennedy Space Agency has it, Japan Energy Agency as well. They use it for launching rockets. The target is about 5 to 10 gigawatt. Our Serge presented that also within our TMR report. We have included it. It's not that this field is stopped today. They are advancing the science there. There is just a Shell-funded research innovation, also co-funded by Department of Energy of US, to scale this technology at least 10 times more. And it's funded in 2021. and they are trying to see if they can reach about 100 gigawatt hour of storage. So this is also an active research science. Unfortunately, we miss it in this workshop, but we tried a lot to bring them as well, but it will be a work in progress. So it's good to know that this is also part of the energy storage for hydrogen. And then we go to subsurface fields that we know, either salt caverns or porous reservoirs. We have different scales, availability of the geology that you have in local residents, also security, and also ownership of the field. Some companies own porous reservoirs, they need to utilize that, so they don't own that other licenses for other activities. Today in the Netherlands, we have 4 gas fields that store energy, and we store about 130 terawatt hour of energy of our use, gas use, and total energy use of 800 terawatt hour in them. So there are these 4 green sites I have highlighted here. And I've looked into IEA documents, and about 5 European countries store 2/3 of the entire gas of the Europe continent. So it would mean that there is a kind of a high center for storage in porous reservoirs for gas that we have today, and it's not equally distributed. With hydrogen, this paradigm may change. So we may have different countries to come to the picture because of their availability and the better geology that they have for hydrogen, etc. But this is not really equally distributed. And Remco has done this study in his project. He will present it later today as well, that look into the underground reservoirs that we have in Europe. There are countries who can deploy this faster or better or have more available reservoirs. Nevertheless, in Netherlands, if we store 130 terawatt hour energy in 4 gas fields, if we want to do hydrogen, we would need about 4 times of volume of them. Because hydrogen contains 3.5 to 4 times less energy in the same kind of almost thermodynamic conditions, let's say 50 bars room temperature, than methane. So you would need a lot of space for it. Yeah? So that's why we are looking into porous reservoirs, and this is the session of today as well. So objectives are clear to everyone. It's a school, so I repeat that, and repetition doesn't hurt in a school type of activities. We need to store hydrogen inside the reservoir, avoid leakage, and operate the system below the critical stress. These are our objectives. Yeah? And then there are similarities with other projects. Storage is not a new topic. Hydrogen might be. So with carbon dioxide storage, Sam presented yesterday, there are similarities, but also dissimilarities, and they are very clear. The closest proxy to underground hydrogen storage is underground gas storage, especially about the mechanics of it. And I come to that topic a bit more in detail. And obviously, hydrogen is a different gas. Yeah? It's more mobile, it's diffusive, it's microbiology of it. Nicole will give a lecture later today, is very different. So, what are the challenges if I come to the porous reservoirs? And this is what when the Admire is starting to establish, is that porous reservoirs are heterogeneous and span larger scales. You want to store hydrogen in microchannels, but you want to operate your reservoir in the kilometer scale. This is a big challenge. Uncertainties we have typically in subsurface reservoirs now are not as acceptable as we used to be, because now you want to store hydrogen, but you want to take it back fully. Right? You want to maintain its purity. So you might have produced gas from the reservoir, fine, but now you're storing it, and you don't want to just be having it trapped, but you want to take it back. So you want really little uncertainty, as much as you can, to reduce it, because of the fact that you want it to be back. And it's very mobile. And coupled processes, and especially that there are new coupled processes that are here. It's not just, let's say, what we had as mixing, as multi-phase flow transport, etc. We have also microbiology coupling as well. And now Marco has recent publications on mixing in presence of microbiological activities. These are new topics in the geoscience environment in the subsurface reservoirs, to couple them together and understand them in presence of all these multi-physics processes. So I went to the literature at that time, and not I mean we, and then I thought that there were systematic literature about doing feasibility analysis. And if you read literature, there is every day, it's a lot of papers coming out on feasibility analysis for underground hydrogen storage. So I look into them and see, this is year 2018, 19. And you see that there are a lot of proxy models used for understanding hydrogen, because at that time, there were no data sets available. So when you go to even 2020 publications, again, in those years, there's still not many systematic experimental data is there. So a lot of colleagues do their best to do some sort of first-order analysis of how would it work, the feasibility analysis of underground hydrogen storage. And so Van Knuchten model, for example, which is very used in hydrogeology, and sometimes for also CO2 storage, CCS as well, have been used as a model for relative permeability and capillary pressure. And this is a name, it doesn't matter. It's a kind of, you can assume that there is a curve for relative permeability of the field, for example, shown in here. There's no hysteresis there. The data would be just an estimation of what CCS would look like. And then you would model, we got a field of an Australian field. So it's a heterogeneous real field that would be a potential, for example, for storage. And we use whatever it has been there, for example, to see how would the cyclic storage of hydrogen look like. The best practice you could do. And a lot of colleagues have done that, and this is the best we could do. And they contributed in the progress of science, because that was the time, at that time, what was known. So you come and say that we did this at the beginning of the Admire. We worked with Martin Blunt in Imperial College and did pore scale analysis to see, does it matter how you would preserve the properties of hydrogen? So we did a lot of systematic analysis of different wettabilities in the system, contact angles, different geology, different rock properties, different pore scale geometries and digital rock, and we found no way that we could really reproduce the curves that have been used before. In all processes, you would see hysteresis. In all cases, you would see different trapping of hydrogen. And it was the claim that we had at that time, only based on modeling with no data, that it is a little bit on the question whether we can use all the previous data for just a new hydrogen, let's say, element. That was our kind of hesitation. Of course, later also, some very, I would say, smart analysis happened. Eric Mackay was presenting yesterday. So what Eric did, he said that it was a good contribution. I really enjoyed his paper. It was that when you do hydrogen storage, you inject cushion gas. And if you use, for example, CO2 as the cushion gas, then CO2 is most likely to be in presence to water. So you would then use a fair use of a CO2 analysis and say, most of the time, CO2 is in presence of brine. So then let's do that and assume that when hydrogen is injected, hydrogen is in the CO2 washed zone, most likely. So that was a very step forward to say that we introduce cushion gas into our analysis and see that it's not just binary system, it's actually a three-phase system. Yeah? But then here you would see that when you use commercial softwares, you don't have enough flexibility as you would have with also spaghetti-looking research codes. Because there you may not be able to introduce even a lot of curves, a lot of flexibilities in the system that is there. But still, that's a kind of an analog to this system, saying that CO2 would wash a lot of water, and then you inject hydrogen, you assume that this would be happening there. Now, my question is, can we advance this? Can we do a bit better with connecting these analyses to laboratory data? And that's the essence of Admire project. So when we started this, we said we could do field scale analysis for reservoir simulation, but then the geology would be given to you as heterogeneous system, but how about the physics of this hydrogen? Would we do the literature as was, for example, suggested with CCS, with air and gas for nitrogen, for example, etc. And that's exactly when we established the hydrogen laboratory of TU Delft and connected it with our small scale or micro scale simulation analysis to actually find how this hydrogen behaves in the subsurface environment. And we are not the only one who did that. Obviously, there will be a lot of speakers also after me, and also some of them who are not actually here. But this was our also philosophy in Admire project. Yeah? And I'm going through a little bit of some of these key elements and come back to that fit analysis and see what differences we observe in that field. We did the same thing for salt caverns, said that it should go to a lab-based approach, that we get constitutive laws under cyclic loading and then do that for a structurally heterogeneous and complex shapes. This is a real cavern cross-section shape in Germany. And then we also analyze multi-cavern system, their distance, their heterogeneity impact, etc. So that was the framework establishment. The same for porous rocks. So the first thing they did in the Admire was to just see how hydrogen looks like. So we connected a hydrogen pipe. It was during COVID. And we have a cylinder filled with brine, and we have rock at the top of this capsule, and then we release hydrogen, it goes and touches the rock. It's a brine, and we can go up to 500 bars. It's a titanium cell, sapphire glass, etc. And we analyze the wettability, contact angle, etc. And this is, okay, fine, so we get some numbers. And then we said, let's just disconnect this pipe and connect natural gas, CH4, methane. We connect methane, the contact angle is the same. We mix hydrogen and methane, again, contact angle is the same. I said, how can it be? I mean, how can I publish papers with it? If they are the same, this is academic crisis. You know, you need papers and publications and funding to say it's different. So what is the difference then? Then it was bugging for us. We repeated, it was the same. And then we did analysis afterwards. And when you compute or calculate the bond number, which is the ratio of buoyancy force with the capillary force that are acting forces in this system, the ratio of this factor for methane and for hydrogen is exactly the same. So the proportion of the capillary forces and the buoyancy forces for them is scaling exactly in the same ratio. Then we understand, oh, so that's right. So if you are having a hydrogen plume raising and it's under gravity and buoyancy only, they behave the same. Hydrogen is the same as methane. So then we published paper. And it was fine, because then we understood why. Yeah, but we couldn't publish before. And then Wilhelmine came, and she put it in the dynamic system for microfluidics to see what is the dynamic contact angle. And then we saw differences in different channels. This is the simplest possible channel you could have. And you see the variation of wettability or contact angle in different channel sizes. And that was also a kind of a puzzle for us. And how can we justify this? There are two classes of theories. One is capillary pressure stays constant across different channel sizes. Another theory is velocity of the displacement velocity could be constant. In the gas water system that we had, we measured the velocities, and we found that velocities are constant across different channel sizes. And when you do the analysis under constant velocities in different channel sizes, you see exactly the same trend that we observed in our laboratory experiment. Then we found that we understand what we did. But when you compare that, so dynamic angles, which is advancing contact angle or receding contact angles, would show also hysteresis. They are different. It's different than the static one that you would observe there. And they also follow some theories that we almost understand. So then we come here and say, these are the results that Wilhelmine could find based on different channel sizes. That's not the only approach in the literature that has been done. This is what we did. In Norway, group of Martin Forno, they did microfluidics, and you see the years are so close, in porous media type of environment. So they made it more porous media looking, and Nicole has worked with the same chip as well. And then there is a group in Australia and also KAUST who actually did tilted plate approach. And so there is a plate approach that you would just turn this plate, and then as soon as the droplet of brine or water is starting to slide, then you would calculate by image processing the contact angle. So for them, it's a negative of this. We have a chamber filled with brine, and we release hydrogen gas. They have a chamber of hydrogen. They put a droplet of water on a surface. And then the surface is tilted until the droplet slides, and then they measure the properties. Yeah? That's hard to be done in porous environment, because if porous media is actually water, but you drop water, it would just be inside the water. So they did a lot of work with just solid materials like silicone or quartz, etc. But here we have real porous rock. And obviously, there is a paper also by other colleagues, Armstrong, Mostagimi as well from Australia. They did the same analysis. They found different ranges of this sort of contact angle. And there is a discussion that Sam also started yesterday about does it matter? And this is something that is still debatable, and I really enjoyed that topic. So Corfelot CF showed a bit higher range. Tilted plate method showed smaller values, and our constant, this static one, showed closer results than the higher one. And you can actually justify that some of them is closer to drainage, another is closer to imbibition process which is advancing and receding, and core flood is somehow an average over the entire process. And so you can do the analysis to see, we think we are understanding how is the hydrogen transport in the micro scale channels are happening. Now, having these ranges of data, we come and ask ourselves, why would it matter to characterize contact angle? Or at what scale of accuracy we should characterize that? I just leave it for discussion. I have my answer for it. And the next question is, would biogeochemical reaction alter the transport properties? And by no means I am the expert in this field. I mean, Catherine Peters is here, Nicole Dapfel, Stefan Janssen. If he manages with this rain to arrive, he will arrive in no time. And we have other colleagues. James is here from Shell. So this is what Nicole did, and I'm just going to show it. I trust that Nicole will explain us why. This is what she did with Martin Forno. They have the same porous media looking chip. They put it in their lab, and then it's sterilized brine and then living brine. When you have living brine where bacterial activity are active, it's the black line at the top. When there is no bacterial activity, you will have here. So what does it really mean? It means contact angle increased when they did that. Which means if contact angle is very small, it means the rock surface lacks water a lot more than hydrogen. When it becomes higher and higher, it means it would like both of them equally. Not equally, but less strongly, water. So in this case, it says that the surface is getting a little bit affinity to hydrogen, as if biofilms would make it a little bit like hydrogen, as if they have some hydrogen stuff in it, that rock is not so disliking hydrogen anymore. It likes a little bit hydrogen now, compared to when it was not coated with biofilms. This is my transport explanation of this. We did the same test with a little bit different bacteria, and that's a little bit, Nicole will tell. Hello, I'm glad you're safe here. We didn't observe any difference. So she shipped us living brine, and we do not see any difference. And so that was the reason. I need 2 minutes and I'm done. So we did not see the difference, and so we asked Nicole why. Yeah, we have our own answer. So this is something we are understanding. And we go to CT scan. CT scan is giving us a kind of an upscaled effective property understanding of the process. And this is what we understand from CT scan. We see 17% trapped hydrogen in the second imbibition. So flush hydrogen back, flush brine, and then we see 17%. The same thing with Sam and Catriona. They report under 7 megapascal, 20%. So it's really matching what they observed as well. We did it at 10 megapascal. Yeah? With nitrogen, they found that when you do drainage, which means you inject hydrogen, nitrogen and hydrogen are the same. But when you inject brine, nitrogen and hydrogen behave differently. So hydrogen is less trapped than nitrogen. So the trapping will be different in the imbibition process. And this is an alternative that we can understand to characterize. And then the thermodynamic of hydrogen would allow us understand these processes in a wider ranges, especially the contact angle or interfacial tension. And we could find with molecular dynamics exactly matching results with the experiment. And so does it matter? We do the no hysteresis curve that I showed you at the beginning, and this is the real one with the hysteresis and with the lab-tuned data. And you see how much hydrogen is trapped in the bottom one compared to the one in the top. So the top one is overestimating the recoverability of hydrogen, the bottom one is less. So this is the importance of hysteresis, heterogeneity, and lab-based property. The very last item is about the mechanics. And I showed you that we do that tuning parameter for understanding mechanics under cyclic loading. And there are many processes in viscoelasticity, plasticity, creep, and etc. that you need to incorporate into your mechanical model. Herminio will give a lecture, and also Auke Barnhort today later. And the last slide. In my view, hydrogen underground storage and underground gas storage in mechanics share very big similarities. So we said, let's just tune it for our Berkhamir gas storage field. We have cyclic injection and production of gas in Berkhamir field. And let's see, can we get the geology of Berkhamir and try to understand the plasticity and elasticity of the field and tune with the lab data that we have for the geology that we have there and match what we observe with the GPS data at the surface. And if you do the tuning in the lab and get the tuning of the first injection cycle, the rest of the cycles are predictable at the surface. So you can predict the subsidence uplift at the surface if you understand mechanics. Now, what's the big challenge here? We don't have data about the stress field in situ. It's only about subsidence uplift. But that is what we are working on to understand in situ stress field. So with that, I'd like to summarize that we are working on this Admire project. There are more projects there, but I just managed to finish in time. And thank you very much. I guess I was 6 minutes.
More or less time. No, thank you. Thank you very much, Hadi. Very much understood that it's difficult to squeeze it all into 20 minutes, and I'm happy that there will be still more presentations by Herminio, by Nicole, to dive a bit more deeply into some of the findings. And also we will still have some opportunities in the discussion perhaps to come back to some of the research questions that you raised. But I would move on without any questions at this moment and would like to invite our next speaker.